Welcome to the Political Millennial Podcast. My name is Connor. Wow, we are already at 10 episodes. This is crazy. And because I have a little bit of experience under my belt now, I want to announce that I do have a Patreon now. This is something that I had to do. I had to make this move because I'm working hard really every day to get this content to y'all. I know I'm only posting like 2 to 3 times a week right now, but I'm working to get that frequency up. I'm working all day, every day, basically like 18 hours a day, barely getting any sleep. I work past midnight most nights just to get this done. This is my job. I'm new at this though, and I can feel myself getting better every day. I can feel it. I can see it. I'm becoming better at this, and if you like what I'm doing, just I'm trying to show the world that there's hope for our millennial generation. Look, we see what's going on, okay? We see what's going on out there. We know the games are being played with our minds and our votes from the left. We know that is happening. They think we are too dumb and too distracted to know what they're doing. The left, we know what they're trying to do, okay? Well, we're not dumb. We're not too distracted to see what's going on. There are several of us millennials out here now trying to turn the tides and save this country from where it's heading, which is towards socialism, towards communism, and that is not a good thing if you didn't already know that. If you approve of this work that I'm doing and this quest that I've set out to accomplish, to keep our country safe from socialism and communist policies, please consider giving. I know it's a little early for me to ask in this, but look, I'm not working on anything else. This is my job. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm pursuing right now. So if you think what I'm doing is a good thing, please consider giving to the cause. It'll help me continue to get this content out and help to show other millennials that it's not too difficult. It's not too dangerous to step out and speak your mind. Okay? This is my primary means of income. Like, so far I've not made anything on it. I've just been trying to put some content out, try to get the word out and show y'all what I'm doing. But you know what? It's okay. I knew this was going to happen. I just know that that's going to have to start turning around at some point. I will continue to work for your, and the country's needs and the country's cause, which is freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion, all the freedoms, right to bear arms. That is what I'm here to do. If you approve, please consider giving, because it'll help me continue to venture out on this quest and to change the perception of millennials in today's country, in today's America. We need this. The country needs this. We cannot continue to go down the same path that we're going down. Thank you so much. The link to the Patreon will be in the description on across all platforms. So if you feel like giving, please don't feel pressured to. Just know that it's there. That's all. Now today we're going to cover the closing of the George Floyd trial, the Derek Chauvin murder trial. That you know what's going on. We're also going to talk about Breonna Taylor's mom sticking it to BLM, at least her city's chapter of BLM, but basically speaking on a national and global scale about that. It applies all around. And then we are going to talk about Maxine Waters' inflammatory comments. Those are ridiculous, just flat out outrageous comments. And I had a realization over this past weekend about the Georgia voting laws, and I'm going to share that with you real quick at the very end. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Connor. I am the Political Millennial. Thank you, and welcome to the podcast. Here we go. So I want to give you sort of my perspective. We all know what's going on with the trial. We have seen the facts and figures over the past 2 weeks. We have a general, as a nation, have a general knowledge of what's going on with this murder trial. Today, the prosecution, if you didn't know, the prosecution and the defense both gave their closing statements to the court. In my opinion, the prosecution was rather leading in their statements, a lot of leading language, which I'm not a law expert. I will never claim to be that unless I end up going to law school, which my parents still want me to do, but I don't know about that. We'll see what happens in the future. I've thought about it. We'll see. But I found that their statements were generally all very leading in their nature, and it was never objected to except for a few little parts at the very end, when the prosecution got their second chance to come back around and rebut the defense's closing statement. But I thought the prosecution was leading. I thought the defense actually did a great job laying out the officer's actions versus police policy, as well as some medical facts to support their different different restraint moves that were used throughout the 9 minutes and some odd seconds. I can't remember the nine. Yeah, it's around the 9 and 1/4 minute mark. But something did occur to me while they were going through these closing statements, and it was actually covered in some of the news commentary while the court was in recess for between closing statements. Do y'all remember when you were young and your parents or a sibling would tickle you? Do you remember how you would try to get out of that? Because I do. And this was a really strange thing that just popped into my head. And I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm just saying this is a thought that occurred to me while the prosecution, I think, it was early on. It was either the end of the prosecution's first closing statement or the beginning of the defense's closing statement. But do y'all remember how you used to get out of the tickle tantrum, the tickle fight sort of thing? The way I would try to get out of it is by screaming, "Stop, stop, stop! I can't breathe," because I was laughing so hard, which by no means am I saying George Floyd was laughing. The whole situation is not a laughing matter. A man died and a man is on trial for murder. There's no laughing in this situation. This is merely an example of somebody trying to get out of a situation this way. And one of the news commentators brought this up, but that never really worked, as I recall. After a long time of me saying it would work, but I think it was just my dad getting tired, basically. Well, it turns out that on a relatively large scale, this also happens when police are attempting to restrain or arrest suspects or people who they are in question of or worried about running away. These suspects, they try to fake or appear to be having a medical emergency. This is something that police see all the time. And this is one of the things that they pointed out on Fox News while I was flipping through the various news channels getting different perspectives. It turns out that a lot of people actually do try to fake have these emergencies. What did we see when Chauvin approached George Floyd's car? Floyd was startled, and then, Chauvin started asking him questions and then eventually asked him to get out of the car. Floyd said, okay, and then basically, questioned, okay, but why? But when Chauvin actually starts to get him out of the car, and Floyd immediately goes to this I can't breathe sort of demeanor. I'm not saying this is what happened, because there are many, many factors in this situation. I'm merely presenting one of the possibilities, okay? We know that Floyd had a significant amount of substances in his system for the average person, including some substances administered immediately prior to when Chauvin appeared at his driver's side window. We know this because they found pills in the car. And in one of the videos, if you pause it, you can see a white substance in Floyd's mouth. This is assumed to either be chewing gum, some people say, part of a banana, which Floyd was eating before this all started. He bought a banana at the grocery store that he had gone into, and you can see him actually finish the banana and throw the peel onto the ground while he's walking back to his car. And then the third option is these fake painkiller pills that are typically made up of heroin, fentanyl, and more and more increasingly methamphetamine. So this is the type of, and if you've seen the pictures, you'll see that it has a 10/325 on it. It's a fake OxyContin pill, which is oxycodone extended release. It's used in cancer patients, used in people who are recovering from major surgeries. Typically, it'll be more of the short form of this opioid. It'll be just an oxycodone pill versus the extended release, and then also it's also the real medication is also used for chronic pain. And did I say cancer patients? I don't think I did. Chronic pain and cancer patients. But they found these pills in the car, so we knew that he had, based on the toxicology report, we knew he had some in his system, and he also seemingly had these pills while under arrest. And they appear to be partially dissolved in the pictures that they found of the pills that they found in the actual squad car. Now, is it possible that these substances played a role in Floyd's death? Yes, it's absolutely possible, especially with his other conditions. Is it possible that his heart conditions played a major role? He had severe arteriosclerotic multifocal heart disease, which is just blocked arteries as fancy terms, medical terms. For blocked arteries, 90% blockage of the right carotid artery. That's a big problem. Medical experts did testify that he did have enough circulation throughout the other arteries and veins in his neck to be able to support brain health, which is why he was still alive before this all happened and still had that 90% blockage. He also had hypertensive heart disease, which is a fancy term for high blood pressure, which is why you see his blood pressure being reported 219 or 216 over like 165 or something like that. That's extremely high. If you don't know, that's astronomically high for a heart rate. Typically, when you're exercising, you don't really get to that level. The average person while working out or running will have a heart rate of around 170 to 190 beats per minute, and that raises their blood pressure to a healthy level, somewhere between 160 over 110-ish. It just depends on your health. But a normal blood pressure is 120 over 80. That's the standard. And typically nowadays, you'll see some doctors even push back on that, saying it should be as far down as 110 over 80. A lot of people don't. Young people typically are there. That's usually where my blood pressure reads. Most people don't read there because of the typical American diet, just so you know. But these factors don't necessarily apply to Floyd due to his medical history, as I stated before. Another possibility that I'll list out is Chauvin solely responsible for Floyd's death. Yeah, that's fully a possibility. That's why we're in this trial right now. Another possibility, I didn't tell y'all I was going to label all these out, but I went through and I listed these, and it's kind of like all the scenarios that could individually be responsible for Floyd's death, but they also all go together. That's another thing. All of these intertwine to cause the situation that ended up killing Floyd's death. We even saw this in the trial. One of the experts claimed that this is a multifaceted cause of death, multiple different factors, and one expert even testified that carbon monoxide could have played a role in Floyd's death. Even though that's not highly likely, it's a contributing factor. Another possibility was the crowd gathered around Chauvin while he was trying to restrain and control Floyd for his safety and for the officer's safety. This is another possibility. The crowd gathered around. Could they have distracted Chauvin and the rest of the officers, and the crowd then be complicit in Floyd's death due to a hostile environment that they created around these officers? There was a few examples that the defense gave today, stating that these examples also included video-supported evidence showing the environment around. So if you've not seen all of the footage, the 17 minutes of footage that is surrounding Floyd's death, you might want to go and take a look at that, because that's kind of what I'm talking about. You've got people, bystanders, going crazy. Like you know the ones that are in the main George Floyd video. They also had a woman walk up behind them, and this actually happens right when it's purported that Floyd took his last breath, actually distracting Chauvin and not letting him see what's going down on the ground with Floyd. So that's why I'm asking, is the surrounding crowd, actually complicit in a way in Floyd's death for distracting these officers who are trying to make sure that Floyd is safe while he's being detained? These are all absolute possibilities that all could have contributed to Floyd's death. And then I found this interesting today. I've tried to watch all of the coverage today. This is not something that I typically have done throughout the trial, just today during the closing statements, and I think that goes for a lot of people around the political atmosphere. But I found this interesting too. One of the prosecution's main focal points today was that Floyd wasn't resisting arrest, which you can clearly see from the footage that he was resisting arrest at one point. They were stating that he wasn't resisting arrest, okay? He just couldn't comply with the officer's orders. This is when you hear this is referring to when he's on the ground, not prior to when they take him back out of the car and put him on the ground, okay? Floyd was struggling with all four officers, nearly knocking one of them over when he kicked them in the chest, also knocking Chauvin's badge, and he knocked something else off of Chauvin's, his body cam. He knocked the body cam off Chauvin's chest also. So there was clearly a struggle. Floyd also hurt his nose during this. This is why we saw the blood on the ground. These are all things they covered today. If you were watching, you would have heard all this. But the reason that I'm covering this is in case you didn't, because a lot of people don't have time to watch, 6+ hours, maybe 8 hours of this coverage. But after the prosecution argued this, the defense came back during their closing statement, and honestly, they really damaged that argument through all the video that they showed. This video that I'm kind of explaining and recalling to you, this is all evidence that they played during these closing statements today. So through this video was recorded on Officer Chang's body cam because, again, Floyd knocked Chauvin's body cam off. I don't know if it was ever put back on, but it was clearly knocked off at one point. The video showed citizens observing Floyd's resistance to arrest and condemning him for doing so, stating, "He still won't get in the car. Come on, man, what are you doing? Now he's definitely going to jail." This video that they showed, this is apart from the initial struggle. These are people who are across the street from what's going down next to the squad car. They're observing the situation away from the chaos. The fact that bystanders had this initial thought before the video surfaced and all the outrage began, it really kind of speaks to the raw observation and the thought process of people who were there at the time when Floyd was resisting arrest. This is all prior to the outrage, even at the scene started. This was during that initial struggle. It's across the street. Officer Chang was over there just kind of controlling that side of the street, making sure everything was okay. I found that video to poke a huge hole in the argument that Floyd was not resisting, because it clearly states that a non-biased bystander, somebody who was just happened to be walking by on the other side of the street, saw this man who they didn't necessarily know. I don't know if they really did know him or not, but to my knowledge, they did not know George Floyd and did not know of George Floyd at this time. Their first reaction to Floyd's struggle with the officers is that he is in fact resisting arrest. This in the moment video I found by far one of the most important videos that they showed today, and I wanted to present that to you to help explain kind of one of the main parts of the prosecution's closing statements. At least poked a huge hole in that argument that they were trying to push. Big ol' hole. And if those on the scene that day thought he was in fact resisting arrest, why should we think differently? We need to ask ourselves this. Why are we not considering what people in the moment thought, who were there observing what was going on before the whole knee on the neck sort of narrative came out, which we can see from some videos is not necessarily true either. It does appear that Chauvin's knee was across the upper back of George Floyd, which that was one of the big things in the defense's case that really, I think, will cause some questions for people, for the jury while they deliberate. If they're thinking that he was resisting arrest, why should we think differently? I know we have video from after this, and we see Chauvin on Floyd, with Floyd on the ground. Floyd seems to be going in and out of consciousness at one point, and then finally he expires, sadly. But let me ask you this. If your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, mom, dad, brother, sister, anybody, your best friend, if they had been out running errands or something, came back and they told you that they saw someone resisting arrest, would you not take that as 100% true at first? Would you take their word at that? And if you did take their word at that, and then they showed you the first part of the event that occurred with George Floyd, not necessarily this example being George Floyd, but if they showed you a video that appeared to be similar to the George Floyd event, would you tell them you thought it was just not able to comply? That he was not just able to comply, or would he be resisting arrest? I highly doubt that you would think Floyd was just not able to comply. If you are a non-biased party to this event, if you observe what is going on with Floyd during this altercation, then you will probably draw the conclusion that this man is resisting arrest, at least at the beginning. This he cannot comply narrative only applies to when Floyd is on the ground, because in fact he cannot comply. He is being restrained because he was resisting arrest. The bottom line from everything that the defense rebutted today against the prosecution was that this narrative that Floyd did not resist arrest is just not true. It's not true, because we have clear video evidence that shows he did really resist arrest for something like 2 minutes before they put him on the ground. The struggle was unreal. To put myself in that situation is almost scary, because Floyd was a big man. And if you look at the officers who were attempting to detain him, they're not big men. Chauvin himself is somewhere around 140 pounds. That's not very big. That's actually pretty small for an American male. Floyd is like a large, muscular man. So they had probable cause to put him in that prone position because they needed to make sure he was safe and they were safe while they waited for the paramedics to come for his nose, and then they would carry on from there. But the thing is that whether he was on substances or not, George Floyd made a conscious choice to not cooperate with these police. He may have been under the influence, but if you've ever taken pain medication for a surgery or something, you know that, yeah, you feel a little weird, but you're not completely gone. If an officer tells you to comply or to follow these orders, asks you to do something, you can still do it. You don't have to resist like that. The prosecution stated that he was scared, and this is why he couldn't comply with these orders. I understand that, but I've been scared before, and I can still think relatively clearly. This is a different situation. I recognize that, but I can't buy the fact that he couldn't comply just based off of fear and a phobia. They tried to work with him, they struggled for several minutes, and then, he requests to be put on the ground, so they put him on the ground, and he continues to say, I can't breathe. He was sitting upright in the squad car he was sitting upright in his car at first and was stating he could not breathe. From what I saw, he was really never, contained in the squad car, if I can remember correctly. He struggled, and they got him out of there because they couldn't get him to sit. He wouldn't get out of the prone position during the struggle. But all that being said, again, George Floyd made a choice, and it resulted, sadly, in a tragic death. One that shouldn't have happened. But what really happened, what the cause of death was, has to be decided by the jury. We've already seen some interference through a congresswoman. We don't know if she was really trying to influence the jury, But there is a sort of scare tactic there saying if you don't rule this way, then this is going to happen. More confrontation is going to happen. That is undoubtedly a scare tactic, trying to just aim it straight at the Floyd case and the Brooklyn Center case that's going down, or will go down in the future. I can't tell you what to think about this. I can only give you my thoughts and my observations from today, but I know how I would vote on this jury. I know what I would do. I'd vote not guilty on all counts on the basis of there being too much contradictory evidence. Even if you believe that Chauvin played a role in this, which I can't speak to if he did or not. I think the main cause of death myself has to do a lot with an OD, just based on the way he was acting at first, the excited delirium, and then the way he became extremely in and out of it, and then basically passed out, and we see him stop breathing, which is what happens during an overdose. We saw that in his toxicology report that his O2 levels in his blood were 98%. And you can't have 98% oxygen levels in your blood if you have been choked out, essentially. Because why? You can't breathe. You have been deprived of oxygen for long enough for CO2 to build up in your bloodstream, and your oxygen levels drop drastically if you're choked. And we know this because you black out. Your brain tries to reboot itself, is essentially what blacking out is in that sense. But there's just too much evidence in my book. This is just me. You obviously make your own opinion up. I'm not trying to lead you either way. This is simply my opinion that I'm presenting to you. Too much contradictory evidence, but we'll see what actually happens. The judge said there won't be an answer tonight due to the danger of riots being at Minneapolis. So either way, we have to wait till the morning. That's basically all I have on that. We'll see what happens, and I'm sure that we'll talk about it again as the verdict comes in and whatever goes on after that. Now we're going to move on to this Breonna Taylor's mom's comments towards BLM. And you know what? She might regret this one. I'm a little scared for her, actually. If y'all didn't see this, Breonna Taylor's mom, Tamika Palmer, she posted on Facebook over the weekend, and she basically called BLM a bunch of fake opportunists on Facebook. Yeah, so the statement begins like this. Tamika Palmer's statement reads, quote, "I have never personally dealt with BLM Louisville and personally have found them to be fraud. State Rep Attica Scott, that's one of the state representatives where she lives, another fraud. She calls this Attica Scott person another fraud." She wrote this on Facebook again. You know what? God bless her, because she just painted a target probably like the size of the moon on her back. A massive target. We know from experience and from past events that BLM does not take kindly to criticism, even from black persons themselves. If you're not with them, you're against them. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, which shows us, it really starts to show us the real picture that they're not in it for the black race or whatever. They're not there for that. They're there for a different reason. And with what's her name, Patrice, with Patrice being and whatever the other one's name is, I can't remember her name. Anyway, with the leaders of BLM being trained Marxists, this is something they claim. This really starts to show us some, well, at least the BLM being against their own people. That's in air quotes, as in the black population of America and around the world. It shows us that they don't necessarily care unless you support them, which is a problem for Miss Palmer. Palmer went on. She said, I've watched y'all raise money on behalf of Breonna's family, who has never done a damn thing for us. Talk about fraud, Palmer wrote. I could walk into a room full of people who claim to be here for Breonna's family who don't even know who I am. I'm so sick of some of y'all. I'm done with this. Enough is enough. The was the S word if you want to know. How amazing is that? Think about this. She had more balls. She had more balls than a lot of government officials do, standing up to BLM, this now massive organization that's bringing in millions upon millions of dollars in donations. Patrice is, she's buying $1 million homes out there. They've got money. Like, she has got some nerve coming out and saying stuff like that. I bet Patrice is out there. Patrice, again, is one of the leaders of BLM. She's sitting prettier in her $1 million home out there feeling exposed by Miss Palmer. Because Breonna Taylor is one of BLM's main martyrs. She's one of the main martyrs that they invoke when they're out there destroying the town. No justice, no peace. Breonna Taylor, say her name, stuff like that. That's what they say. For Breonna Taylor's mom to come out and to speak out against this organization that claims to be helping, this is quite a risky game she's playing. It's risky for anyone to talk against BLM. Really, we've seen people canceled to the point of losing jobs and livelihoods off of criticizing BLM and Antifa sometimes, which is ridiculous. Ridiculous. These two groups are destructive. They destroy wherever they go. They don't care. We saw this happen in multiple cities. It's still happening in Portland. It's still happening in Minnesota. We know that they're not good organizations. So for one of the victims, sadly victims, families, to come out and speak out against this organization, this is huge for the argument against BLM, because it shows you that they raised these millions, don't give a dime of it to the people they claim to represent. This shows us straight through the facade that is BLM. It shows us straight through. This is just a money-making machine. That's all it is. It's a money-making machine. This has been a rough week for BLM. There's been a lot of negative press around this real estate portfolio thing for Patrice. Wow. Ultimately, I think it's a really positive thing. I think we need more people to come out, like Miss Palmer, Tamika Palmer, Breonna Taylor's mom. We need them to come out and stand up when they see the BS that BLM and Antifa spew onto the streets and into our children's minds. It's extremely important that if anyone else who has been affected by police killings in any nature, if they feel this way, and we have actually seen victims, families come out and say, we don't want this. But this is a whole nother level. This is This is calling them fraudulent. It's saying that they aren't who they say they are. And that's a big statement. We'll see what else happens, but for now, good for her. I pray that there's more to come, because BLM is not who they say they are. They're lying to you. They do not have your interests in mind. They speak only for themselves, and they act only for themselves. We've seen this multiple times. Sadly, we've seen it multiple times. But it's the truth. They don't care. BLM, Antifa do not care. They have an agenda. That's what they're in it for. Moving on. It seems like this is actually going to be a shorter show, which is great, because I'm recording this way late, way past when I should have recorded this. This past weekend, as I said, I was going to speak about the Georgia voting laws, this realization that I had. I was listening to some podcast over the weekend, and it invoked this thought. A light bulb went off. And you know what? I wanted to share it with y'all because you may have had similar thoughts like this, but this is just, I don't know. It's just something I wanted to share. I found it an interesting revelation. Do you know why Georgia and its voting law changes are such a problem for the Democrats? Why do they care so much that this one state, and typically a Republican state, changed the law? Why? Why does it matter so much to them that they're willing to boycott and move businesses and almost entire industries? Hollywood has said they won't film in Georgia unless the law is changed. As you might know, many of the Marvel movies are filmed, at least somewhat, in Georgia. Very large market there for that. There's a lot of money that will be taken away from Georgia through Hollywood. Also the MLB All-Star Weekend and things of that nature. Coca-Cola even is threatening things. But why do the Democrats care so much? Why? It doesn't make sense. They've not had Georgia except for this past election. Why? Why do they care so much? Why are they making such a big deal about a voting law that doesn't even harm anyone's right to vote? It just requires a photo ID, and that people can't, political organizations can't hand out water within 150 feet of or 200 feet, one of them, within that amount of distance to the polling place. We have that here in Texas. We have both of those here in Texas. I showed my ID to vote in this past election. Never got handed a bottle of water. I was fine. You're not supposed to be there for hours upon hours. That means you've got a very poor system playing out. That's not how it's supposed to work. But why does it matter so much? It's because the public thinks that Georgia has started to flip toward the Democrat side, and the Democrats don't want to lose that momentum. This is truly the reason why they care so much about Georgia. And what would cause them to lose all this momentum? This is where the real sort of revolutionary thought process started that I had at this time. Changing the voting laws to actually require identification so that they can't continue to do what they were doing for this past election, which was mass mailing ballots, sending ballots to addresses where people have moved away from, meaning that the wrong person actually gets this ballot and has a chance to send in that ballot with their vote on it, and then also vote for themselves, effectively voting twice. This is one of the things that the Democrats do not want to lose. With proof of ID and address, your home address, this takes away a lot of opportunity for the Democrats to take advantage of the system. Basically, it takes away the ability for them to cheat on a mass scale. Because people actually have to, this is a weird, nuanced idea, they actually have to identify themselves. What? You have to identify yourself? Oh, that's racist. My gosh. That's the most racist thing I've heard. I only showed my ID yesterday when I bought beer. I only showed my ID yesterday when I checked out a book at the library. When I applied for a credit card at a bank. This is not when I picked up tickets at Will Call. This is not a new idea. So ask yourself, why is it such a big deal? Because the Democrats do not want to lose the opportunity to cheat. And that's a big statement. I know this, but there's really no other reason. There are plenty of minority persons on film stating that they don't understand this argument. They don't get why the Democrats don't think they can get ID. In fact, even I have talked about this on this podcast. It's actually racist. It's more racist to think that a person of color cannot obtain an ID. This is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous thought. If you don't have ID, you can't do anything. Some form of ID. You don't have to have a driver's license, by the way. States have specific voting IDs. They've got state identification cards if you don't drive. I imagine a lot of people in New York City who never got their driver's license have this state identification card. This is not a new idea. You even have to present a membership card at Costco and Sam's Club to be able to buy things. This is not a racist thing. It has nothing to do with race. White people have to show their identification. I showed mine. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Showing who you are, that you have identification from the United States of America, it just proves that you're part of the club. Illegal immigrants should not be voting on, and people who are going through the natural process, the naturalization process of becoming a U.S. citizen. They're not allowed to vote. Why? Because they haven't, quote unquote, joined the club yet. This is something that has been a part of living in countries since voting began. You don't see or hear stories about Roman senators and other democratic societies, the Greeks throughout time. They didn't allow non-citizens to vote. People traveling through the country didn't get to vote. They had no representation. Why is it any different now? They don't pay taxes. I mean, they pay sales tax, but that everybody pays that. Even travelers pay that. People visiting the United States from out of country. This is not a nuanced idea. It's insulting, to be honest, that the Democrats think a large portion of our population don't know how to get these identification cards. It says something about our society, does it not? It says that if our minority populations don't know how to navigate the government, that we as a government are doing something wrong. We are not educating our population enough. This is a huge issue. It has nothing to do with the race. Even if minorities don't know how according to Joe, use the internet and get identification. If they don't know how to do that, they can't do anything. It doesn't even matter if you're a person of color. If we're not teaching our population correctly, it means that even white people, the majority of the country, don't know what to do, how to get a ID. It doesn't make sense. If one population who grows up in the same educational system knows how to do this, why wouldn't the rest of the population? This should offend the minority population. Frankly, I don't know why it's not a bigger issue and why they're not speaking out more. BLM should have a problem with this. If their whole argument is that black people should be treated equally, which is 100% true, I have no qualms on that. Every person in the world should be treated the same. It doesn't matter where you're from. We should all be treated equally. Now, certain rights don't apply in certain governments and things of that nature. The United States has the most free population in the world. If you go somewhere else, you're going to lose some of those rights. It's just the way the world works. But you should still be treated with dignity and respect no matter where you go. Now, that's not what happens, unfortunately, in this world, because we're all human and we're all sinners, and we all make mistakes. But we should everybody deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, no matter your race, no matter your country of origin, no matter your sexual orientation. It doesn't matter. Everybody should be treated the same. And BLM should be sticking up for who they claim to represent. But they don't. They go along with it. They agree, yeah, it's hard for us to get IDs. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to say? Do you not have ID, Patrice? And whoever your other lady is, I don't remember her name. Y'all don't have ID? You didn't have to present your identification to buy those $1 million homes? I don't buy that. Come on, y'all. Everybody in this country is excited to get their driver's license when they turn 16. You've got some form of identification. You just do. The fact that the left is saying this is a racist law is dumbfounding. To have to identify yourself, it has nothing to do with race. We want to make sure you're from the United States, which is not racist either. It just has to do with government. You can be in this country without voting. That's not an issue. You just have to do the paperwork. It's not, I know that it's reported to be difficult sometimes for some people to get into this country. But that doesn't give way to people just flowing in through the border like they are. That's not how this should be happening. What we need is immigration reform to make it easier to migrate to the United States. Polls have come out recently that show that as a whole, the United States population is very pro-immigration. We believe in immigration to the United States. We do. I don't think there's a single person in the United States, barring white supremacist populations and other supremacist populations, that don't think this way. It's only them. Everybody else they say, yeah, come on over. We want to grow. We've got space. We do. We have plenty of space for people. Not in our major cities necessarily, but Midwest, the plains, The Mountain West, man, we've got plenty of space. Come on over. But do it right. That is all that this Georgia law wants. We want you to identify yourself as a United States citizen because per the Constitution, non-citizens do not have a right to vote. And that is not uncommon throughout the world. I don't think there's a single country that allows non-citizens to vote in their democratic system. If I'm wrong, let me know. But I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. It's just ridiculous. I'm sorry that I went on a rant because I definitely got off where I was going. But, well, not really, but you get what I was saying. Basically, this gives, the law takes away the ability for the Democrats to cheat on a mass scale, like I said, because people do have to identify themselves. That is why they care so much about this Georgia law. Because they need people to not have to identify themselves to be able to get away with what they seemingly got away with. Not saying that's 100% what happened, but there are signs that point to some sort of funny business. You may not agree with that, and that's okay. I don't care if you don't agree with me. That's what I think. You can think whatever you want. That's where I stand. I take a libertarian approach on things most of the time. As long as you do you and you don't affect me, I don't care. As soon as you affect me, I have a problem with it. Plain and simple. That's all. If you ask me about anything, that's essentially how I feel. Do what you want, as long as you don't hurt me and you don't hurt my family and you don't hurt anybody else. You're free to do what you want. That's all. That's all that libertarians believe in. They don't want to lose what they think they're gaining. That's all it is. They think that they're turning Georgia around, which we'll see. We'll see what 2022 brings because so far the Democrats, it's not looking so good for them. It's not. And sadly, I'm kind of sad because it's the country's in a horrible shape right now. And that may be good for the future of the Republican and conservative movements, but it's not good for the country. And that's ultimately what matters. The health of the country. And we, as a country, are not healthy right now. Not at all. Not at all. Oh man. What happened to my Maxine Waters portion? My goodness. It must have gotten deleted. Well, that's no good. Anyway, I can fill you in on it. Maxine Waters. Wow. You know, she's always been a controversial figure throughout her 30-ish years in Congress, in the House of Representatives. In 2017, 2017, somewhere in there, she was the member of Congress who took it upon herself to call for the confrontation of the Trump cabinet. And it enraged much of the country because this is not how we operate. We are not supposed to do this to our elected officials. They were elected by the people. They do what they were elected to do. And those who are appointed, such as cabinet members, they do what they're told, essentially. The president is their boss. It's no different than any other company. So for a member of Congress to come out and say that you should get up in the face of the cabinet is not okay. And we, once again, find Maxine Waters, a Democrat from California, something like the 45th 1st Congressional District or something like that. I could be wrong, but it's something like that. She made her way over to Brooklyn Center this past weekend and inserted herself into these protests. They seem to welcome her there. Why wouldn't they? She speaks for them in many different ways, which is not a problem. They deserve representation in a way. But for Maxine Waters to go out there and say that if the George Floyd trial, this is what she was asked about at the protests. She was asked about the George Floyd trial. I'll start there. And her response is concerning, to say the least, because we already expect there to be issues no matter the verdict in the Chauvin trial, in the murder trial for George Floyd. We know there's going to be some sort of backlash. We already know that. But to have a member of Congress come out and kind of throw fresh wood on the fire, stoke the flame, and really start it burning right before the jury is supposed to deliberate, not good. No, that's not okay. Maxine Waters deserves to be censured by the U.S. House. She deserves to be censured, which is, it's really a slap on the wrist. It doesn't do anything, but it's a condemnation from the body of Congress. Well, from the body of the House of Representatives, saying what you did is wrong. You should not do this again. If you do, we'll take further actions. Some people are even calling for her impeachment over this because she won. We don't necessarily know that she had any intention of swaying the way jurors vote in the murder trial, but it undoubtedly got to them somehow, because these are members of the community there, right? They live there. They live in this area in Minneapolis. For a representative, a U.S. representative, to come into their city and say to these young people who are, a good word would be fiery. They have passion about what they're there to do. And I'm not saying that all of them are destructive, but there is definitely a destructive force in this area because we've seen it happen. Not everybody is destructive when it comes to these protests, but millions and millions of dollars were done in damage the first way around when Floyd was killed. And now we've had this other incident in Brooklyn Center not far away, and it's already been bad. You know, there wasn't even a whole lot of looting from what it seemed. There was just a lot of destruction. People went out and they trashed a Dollar Tree. I didn't see a single person carrying anything. They didn't really show any other stores, but from what I gathered at that one location, it didn't have a lot to do with looting. It had a lot to do with the destruction. But these jurors are not going to, if they are scared of the destruction that could come from a not guilty verdict on all counts or on some counts, they're going to be more restricted in their ability to even go there. They're not going to go there. They don't want that to happen. This is their home. This is why it's such a big issue for Maxine Waters to say what she did. And in the closing statement portion of the trial today, the judge even condemned Maxine Waters, the judge of the trial, because he recognizes that these people are from there. He's from there. He's from there. He knows what sort of effect those words from a person high up in the government could have on these jurors. Because her word, her language influences strongly. It's already influenced strongly. We saw it back in 2017 with the Trump cabinet. Sarah Huckabee Sanders was eating in a restaurant. Protesters came in. They got up in her face and forced her to leave. That's not okay. That is not American democracy. That's something out of World War II era Germany. No matter what the Democrats say, they're the ones who are perpetuating this hate across the aisle. Republicans, they seem to only want to have the verbal arguments, right? On a mass scale, I recognize that there was an incident on January 6th of this year, but think about the destruction done in Minneapolis, in Portland, in New York City, Philadelphia. Think about those cities. In Los Angeles, when the Lakers won the championship, and the NBA championship this past year. I've said this once, and I'll say it again. Whatever the Democrats say that the other side is doing is what they are actually doing. It's a deflection technique in debate. You blame your party or your opponent for what you're doing, so that when it comes out that you're doing it, the public has already, or the audience has already become accustomed to this idea that this has happened. We've seen this happen repeatedly with the Democrats and what they claim the Republicans are doing. Turns out Democrats were actually doing it. But for Maxine Waters to come out and make these statements is just absurd. I can't believe it. My jaw dropped when I saw that on Saturday night. It dropped because I knew the implications of it. That's basically the Maxine Waters situation. We don't know what's going to happen with it. You know, it's still relatively new. It's just Monday, so there's more to come on that. I'm absolutely sure of it. Nancy Pelosi says that Maxine Waters shouldn't have any reprimanding. There shouldn't be anything that happens because, she was just speaking her mind or whatever. But there's got to be some. I mean, there are some Republicans. Taylor Marjorie Greene from Georgia. She introduced a resolution to the House for Maxine Waters' impeachment, I believe. It won't pass. I'm 98% sure that it won't pass. But yeah, it's a situation. That's for sure. It is a situation. Just not good. Not good. Guys, oh wait, I have one more thing for y'all. I had this is going to be in the description. Also, I can't really share it with you other ways except for parlaying it and tweeting it, but this is the easier way to find it because you know exactly where to go to get it. You don't have to search through feeds or anything. I saw this video on Twitter last night, and I decided to include it because it's quite shocking, to be honest. The shock factor to see all of these clips put together is incredible. And it's all Democrats basically speaking violent words towards Republicans. It's all coming from them. And this video will prove that. It'll show you how bad it really is over the past 4-ish years. I know the Maxine Waters clip that I was talking about, where she calls for people to get in the face of the Trump cabinet, is in there. Go watch it. Go find it, because this thing is crazy. Like, to see it all put together is ridiculous. I can't even believe it. Well, guys, that's gonna be it for tonight. I'm so grateful for y'all coming in here and giving me a listen again. I really enjoy it when I get to do this. Again, I've got a Patreon now. If you like the work that I'm doing, please go and support me there, because I gotta pay the bills. This is what I'm trying to do to support my family. I'm trying to change the way that people think about millennials, because we're not all liberals. We're not. It's just a false narrative. They want everybody to think that the younger generations are more progressive, more liberal, because that's what the media and the Democrats want. They want to raise children up from the ground up thinking the way they do. That's what we see happening in the education system. That's why a lot of parents are taking their kids out of public schools and putting them into private. That's why. But you know what? There's hope. There really is. I went to public school. I did. I graduated from a high school here in the Austin area. Went on to Baylor University, graduated, started working. I am a conservative-leaning libertarian, or a libertarian-leaning conservative, however you want to put it. We're not all liberals. So please, help me change this perception. Help me spread the word. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell on YouTube where it counts, because they won't tell you when I post, especially when they start to get wind of this movement that we are creating. We will conquer this country in a way. I'm not trying to be violent. I'm just saying, ideologically, there are conservatives out there in the millennial generation. There's a lot of us. I grew up with all conservative kids. All of us. I don't think there was a single liberal among my friends. And that's important, because the future of this country is looking very grim right now. At least to me, somebody who's young and is observing this from essentially the front lines. It's my generation that is a majority of the cancel culture out there, but we're not all like that. So please help me change this perception. Help me get the word out. People are going to believe you more than they believe me about this podcast and what I'm trying to do. Whatever I say, they take it with a grain of salt. What you say, what they hear you say, they take that as your word. That is different. That is more powerful, and they trust you way more than they trust me. Please go and follow me on Twitter and Parler at Connor Womble. On Parler, I'm labeled as the Political Millennial. On Twitter, I've got 2 separate accounts. There's a podcast account on both Twitter and Insta at Polly_Millennial. Go and follow me there. Thank y'all so much. I can't wait to see y'all next time. Thank you so much, and I will see you on Wednesday.